Dave Davidson, or David Davidson. I go by Dave. I had a different last name, and then my mom got married, and I took that name. You know, it wasn't like a practical joke or anything like that. I was in 5th grade, and I saw Joe Perry playing a solo in an Aerosmith video, and I was like, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen, ever. And he's like playing, there's like smoke probably in the background or something, he's ripping. So I've been playing guitar for about 15 years. You know, I was basically, took some lessons soon after. By the time I was in middle school, I was just teaching myself, you know, because I got the whole like tab thing and this and that, and I felt like my playing had got to a certain point where I was able to kind of progress on my own a little bit. And then when I went to high school, it was an arts high school, so they had you know, jazz program there, and I was never exposed to anything like that. I was just going to learn rock songs and stuff like that. You know, I played in the big band there. I played in the guitar ensemble and had like some private lessons, or they were more like group lessons. But you know, still, I wouldn't have been able to study guitar at any other high school like in my area. And you know, some kids, you know, like they fight the jazz thing. It's like, oh, I just want to like do punk rock, or I just want to learn like whatever, like my favorite Nirvana song. But for me, I always looked at music as kind of a, I don't know, how can I take it, even if I'm not going to be like a jazz guy, how can I take some of the elements of that and at least incorporate that into my own style, just to diversify my playing. Right. So I never looked at it as like a negative thing. Sometimes it's like, just because it's in school, it's like, oh, it's schoolwork, you know, this sucks. Yeah. But I just looked at it as like, hey, I'm learning music in school, like I'm pretty lucky to be able to do that, right. And might as well take as much out of that as I can, whether it's, you know, learning like different jazz chords, like, you know, 7th chords, and you know, applying that kind of theory to like, oh, how can I take this and like put it into like, you know, metal or like, or other stuff. I mean, a lot of stuff came later, but right. That was when it first planted the seed in my head to think like, oh, there's like a whole different genre that I'm not used to with all these different ideas I can start taking from. So there's so much stuff happening in jazz. I mean, you can have just like a nice jazz ballad and like, you know, it's nice to listen to, but some jazz is like, you know, super duper heavy sound. You know, it's got like tons of dissonance in it, and all the players that, you know, are really like, you know, looked up to jazz players that aren't just like, you know, playing like in like lounges and stuff like that, but like legit dudes, like they rip, and like, you know, dissecting like a solo on that level. Like I remember when we had to do a Wes Montgomery solo. When you think jazz blues, you think Wes Montgomery. So we had to do one of his solos. You know, kind of opened my mind to different things. And then we had to learn a Pat Martino solo. We learned Just Friends off the El Hombre record. I don't know if you've ever heard that solo. It rips, and it's something that a, you know, 11th grade or 10th grade high school student definitely shouldn't be taking on. And it was 4 of us in the guitar ensemble, and we each had to play in unison. So that was a ridiculous solo. Yeah. You know, we probably didn't play it as well as we could have, but just the fact that we were being exposed to that stuff and really pushing ourselves to the limit as far as our abilities, like in school and a musical level, was really cool. Because sometimes, you know, let's just say other programs in high school and education, you know, it doesn't really mentally stimulate you as much. It's just kind of meant to be like a baseline curriculum that everyone can understand. So to really get super in depth with like almost like college level stuff when we were in high school, because our teacher was so passionate about it and was such a great player himself, and had faith in us, that it was a really cool experience. From there was Berkeley. Yeah, I went to Berkeley. You know, right after I graduated high school. My high school was cool enough to ask me back to teach there right when I went to Berkeley. So I was in my first year at Berkeley and teaching at the high school I just graduated from. Berkeley was down the street from my high school. So it was right kind of in the center of a whole bunch of stuff. So I could go do my classes at Berkeley. I could walk over with my guitar and teach some lessons at the high school. So that was a very, very music-focused time in my life, obviously. Yeah. And it was a lot of fun. You know, I got to be a student and a teacher at the same time. You know, Joe Perry started me off, and then I got super duper into like Guns N' Roses. So Slash's playing just really spoke to me. He was so lyrical in his, you know, his delivery and his phrasing, and he had some, you know, some technical chops, you know, for a rock guy. Yeah, I mean, he holds up And it's just playing. He's just phenomenal in my opinion. And of course, he could write the riffs too to back it up. So those were the two guys from the rock genre. And then I started getting into like, Metallica and this and that. But really, the band that really broke me into that whole world was like, opened up the door and I was like, oh my God, there's so much stuff in here. Was Pantera. And, just seeing Dime play, I never even heard guitar playing like on that level before. It had that kind of rock vibe because his solos are kind of bluesy and this and that, but it was just on a whole nother level. And like the guitar tricks he's doing with like the walk solo where he's doing like the sliding and stuff, and it just was so unique. And all his whammy bar stuff was like, I didn't even know a guitar could make those noises, So that totally turned me on to metal. And then from there I got into some of more of the, I guess you call them maybe obscure guys for, mainstream metal. But, like Jeff Waters from Annihilator, love his playing. Like Marty Friedman from Megadeth, just can't get enough of his stuff. He's so exotic with his phrasing, and he just totally has his own personality, but he has all the chops to back it up too. But he's not like, overly technical, he's not like, oh, show off, look at me. And like a lot of his solos are really, really hard to play and are definitely showy, but I think his phrasing is what really sets him apart from like a lot of the other shred guys. And then getting into some of like the death metal people like Dan Mongrain. He plays in this band called Martyr from Canada, and his playing is just so it's just killer. His riffs are totally original and unique, and his soloing is incredible. Of course, some of like the classic guitar virtuoso guys, like like I got into Steve Vai a lot. I liked his like legato playing. Who else? Just riff guys from death metal like Luke LeMay from Gorguts. He's a huge influence on me. I have a Gorguts tattoo on my right arm, so dedicated spot for Gorguts. I'm probably missing a bunch of people, but getting into other influences outside of metal or rock. So like jazz guys, fusion guys. I like Scott Henderson a lot. He's got a cool, funky kind of jazzy vibe to his playing. I love Pat Martino. I was introduced to him in high school, so I really dug his playing a lot. Wayne Krantz, he was another guy I was introduced to in high school. Just really funky, dirty player. There's always so many great players out there that you hear about this guy or that guy. Emil's been on your site, like been checking his stuff out. Like he's, just a freak of nature. There's so many great guitar players out there, and there's so many different genres of guitar playing, and each one has their own style. And if you have an open mind and an open ear, you can listen to all of them. And even if you play metal or this or that, you can, gather little bits and pieces from like a jazz guy or a blues guy or a rock guy and kind of incorporate that into your own sound, because I think that's kind of the ultimate goal with being a musician. It's great to listen and play other people's solos and all that stuff, but to find your own voice and your own sound, I think is kind of like the holy grail that every musician that doesn't just want to like hang out and play just in their basement or whatever, like that wants to speak to other people with their music is trying to find your own voice without sounding like a derivative of like somebody else. Band started when I was in 8th grade. So we formed, it's always been the same two guys, and then we recently added a new member during the course of this past year. But I met up with our drummer Phil in 8th grade and our bass player Anthony, 8th grade, and we just started jamming together. We didn't even have like original stuff. It was just like, hey, let's try and get through like Enter Sandman or something like that, or like Nirvana. We started, grooving on that, and slowly but surely, just start writing some riffs and bringing them in, and started building songs. And our first band was called Cryptic Warning. We played some shows locally. We were basically people knew about us in like the underground metal scene of New England, but we never really got out and played too much. So around the 2005 time, we decided, hey, let's change our name and really just kind of give us a reboot, because we put out a record as Cryptic Warning. Nothing really happened with it. We were just so young when we were trying to do all this stuff that no one, there's no like rule book to like starting a band. Like you just have to kind of make your mistakes and learn from them. So we figured, hey, let's change the name and let's just, go at it, 110%, knowing all the stuff we know now. Yeah. So we didn't even print up t-shirts as Cryptic Warning. It's like kind of like band stuff 101. So when we did the Revocation, we got like a killer recording. This guy, Pete Ruccio, he's been our engineer ever since. He did our demo. and it sounded, you know, better than anything we've ever done before. We got, you know, like merch printed up and all this stuff, and we started, you know, trying to tour too. You know, it wasn't just like, oh, let's just play like the same bar in Boston that we always play. Let's try and do, you know, go on tour and, you know, get out of there. Even if it wasn't like, you know, a full U.S. tour, like let's go out for 2 weeks and, you know, do the East Coast or, you know, get over to the Midwest a little bit. So that started happening, and the demo, you know, got a really good response, and it just kind of snowballed from there. We ended up recording our first record, Empire They've Seen, and self-releasing that, and that got us a lot of attention, and that's when we signed to Relapse. Yeah, the new record, Chaos of Forms, it's definitely, in my opinion, it's our best one yet, but you know, that could also be because it's like the freshest music yet for us. You know, generally with, you know, people, you know, write, the newest stuff's always going to be your favorite because, you know, you get so used to playing like a bunch of songs off the old record, whether you're on tour or just like hearing them, you know. The material's fresh for us, so we're super excited about it, and we think that the songwriting is some of the best we've done so far. We really tried to hone our craft on that, and you know, I've spent, you know, just tons of hours just trying to work out the different, you know, starting from the riffs and then working with the song structures, and we just try to like trim the fat and say like, hey, does this riff really add something to the song, or is it just, you know, taking it away? You know, if we put this riff after the chorus for the last time in the song, you know, should we just end with the chorus and, you know, have it be, you know, climactic, or do we really want to throw this like extra added little technical riff in just to be like, hey, look what we can do? Right. So, you know, growing as a musician and as a songwriter, you know, I feel like I can make those decisions a little bit better, and you know when to put a riff in and know when to say, hey, you know, this fits, but it doesn't help it. You know, just because it like it's in the same tempo and like it could go there doesn't mean that like it should. Guitarists are, there's, you know, you're always gonna feel like you have maybe something to prove or this or that, but you know, it's such a rat race, and after a while, like, there's always going to be someone better than you, or there's always going to be, you know, someone who's, you know, spent more hours with the metronome on, like, a scale, and they're going to play it cleaner than you. So, really, it's just about making music that, you know, I dig and that, like, resonates with me, rather than saying, like, hey, look at this, you know, this 45 minutes of, like, the craziest, most technical stuff that, you know, is super hard to pull off. We still have that, you know, it's definitely a component of our songwriting, but, you know, we just want to rock, man. That's really like where we're kind of at now. Like, and if we can have like some weird parts, they don't even have to be technical. It just, you know, they make your ears perk up and say like, oh, that's like a little different. Right. So, you know, we're just focused on, yeah, like just bringing the rock, bringing the shred. But, you know, sometimes it's technical, sometimes it's not. And I think, you know, writing is about, you know, for me, like putting some diverse things in there to just kind of, you know, move the song along, and, you know, something that adds to it, but at the same time kind of mixes it up a little bit. So yeah, my gear, well, I played Jackson guitars. It's a Jackson Warrior. I've always liked the Warrior shape. My first Jackson was a Warrior, and I had that one for years. I got it as like a graduation present from high school. So it's the same, you know, same shape. It's got, this one's a reverse headstock, so it's got the regular headstock on it. It's like Ferrari red. It was like the sickest guitar ever when I was like, you know, a kid. And I didn't even want to play it because I didn't want to get any dings on it or anything. And you know, I played it in our first music video that we did for the Relapse CD, Existence is Futile. And just so happened that Jackson dudes really dug my playing, and they've totally gotten behind me since then. So like I said, they sent me out this sweet custom, put the DiMarzio pickups in there, because DiMarzio pickups are the best pickups ever. They give me the deactivator that I throw in there, and this is a Super 2. Both passive, yeah. Deactivator's modeled after an active pickup, but it's got a passive sound, so it sounds super aggressive, but it's got, you know, some more, it's not as compressed sounding as some of the active pickups. So I moved some of the knobs out of the way. 'Cause sometimes like when you're playing, you know, you don't want to worry about like hitting knobs, so they move that down. It's got the original Floyd Rose on there to do all the wacky whammy stuff. And then as far as other gear that I use, I'm with EVH now. All the tones that you're hearing on the JamPlay lessons are all EVH sounds. So that's the stuff I use and abuse. Yeah, that's my gear setup. So. It was really flattering, really cool. They didn't let anybody know like about the list, so I'm a Metal Sucks reader myself. I go to the site and check it out, get some metal news from there and all that stuff. So when I first saw the list being announced, it was like, oh, cool! It's, they got this 25 guitarist list, and but I figured they would have informed people prior to the list coming out if they got on the list. So I didn't get any emails or anything like that. So I just figured like, oh, I didn't get on. Like, party is like, kind of bummed out, but at the same time, like I'm a newer, guitar player and this and that. So it's, there's so many awesome names in that list. So I just got sucked into it because I wanted to see who was going to get on it next. Like I wasn't even thinking I was going to get on it. So, I was getting down to the top 5, and like that's when you really get interested. Like, oh, who's like next? It was like, dude from Meshuggah, and you're like, all right, that makes sense. And some other people. And then we were on tour when the number 1 thing came out. We were in I think we were in Ohio actually. And I was driving at the time. We were in the van. The guys were on the back, and their friends like, oh, look who got number 1. And I was like, oh, who got it? And they were like, you did. And I was like, haha, like very funny guys, like, who was it, David Townsend or whoever, and they were like, no, seriously, you did. And like they handed me their phone, and I was like driving, I was like looking at it, like I thought they like somehow hacked into the Metal Sucks website. I couldn't even like comprehend that I was actually number 1. So I was like, whoa. So it was a total surprise, and totally flattering. I don't think I should have gotten the number 1 slot to begin with, you know what I mean? So there's so many great players out there. Like I said, it's cool. Like, Metal Sucks. Thank you so much for saying that, like feeling that passionate about my playing. Like that's an awesome feeling. Yeah. But like, if you have like pressure on you, like what other people's expectations are, that's just gonna drive you insane. There's so many people out there in like internet land that like, love you, and then there's so many people out there in internet land that like hate your guts, for like no reason at all other than they just like don't like your band at all or this or that. So try and like live up to everyone's expectations. You're gonna let somebody down at some point, and it's just gonna like keep you up at night and like totally drive you insane if you're like trying to like please everybody, because everyone's a critic nowadays. It's like, oh, new records. It's because you're gonna get your like fans that like automatically, no matter what you come out with, are always gonna say that the old stuff was better, just because that's like the cool thing to say. Like as soon as a band starts gaining popularity, it's like, oh, they suck now. No matter if they've gotten better, and like this and that, there's always been to be like, oh, their demos were the best part about that band. They were cool before they put a demo out, just because like no one knew about you, and like you were like in the cool like in club. Right. Everyone likes to have like a band that's like, oh man, check this band out. You think you know about metal? Like I got like the super underground band, that you can throw your cult card out there. You're like, all right, this is the band that no one's heard of, and aren't you jealous that I have their only copy of their, cassette 7-inch DAT tape that is out of print, and I bought all the other copies and burned them in a fire, so I have the only remaining one. So it's probably a long answer to that question that might not even air. So.